my name is Alistair McLean. Welcome to my channel, The Sacred Rainbow Warrior. Today I'm wearing my colourful rainbow poncho to explain, and I'll explain why. This video is about helping brothers healing brothers, but women will also find this extremely helpful. And if you know any men that are going through difficulties, pass this on. If you listen to my Easter message, you'll see this is kind of a continuation of helping men who are struggling. And I know this is going to start showing itself more and more because I know what's going to happen. Well, not precisely, but I know the majority of what's going to happen. I speak about it in the Easter message, the lowering and the revealing of the veil, which is in Latin is called the apocalypse. And the apocalypse means to lift the veil. And essentially, that is the illusion that we're in. And the illusion is toxic shame. It's all these lies. And we're in the year of the snake this year. I could talk about it for hours, honestly. It's so, all the signs have been pointing to this time for generations, hundreds, if not thousands of years. And all the signs are here. Plus, I always work in tandem, in partnership and co-creation with Spirit and my partner. So we get a lot of messages, we ask a lot of questions, and we decipher the truth through our own beings as well and our soul to get the highest truth. And today I realized I was working out with my partner, and she says, I feel like doing a video for men. And I said, do you know what? That would be really great because I feel like there aren't many women out there supporting men at the moment. And I'm doing a lot of work for women because I find it really easy to help women because they are willing to receive the help that is needed. But I find like listening to my brothers, and I want to welcome my new subscribers. I'm really thankful that there's more people engaging with me. What I'm noticing is that a lot of men are very apprehensive of speaking up and contacting me, and I'm going to speak into this. I've just done a video on the voice and the vulnerability of sharing, which is really important. But I'm going to speak into the direction that men are taking, which is leading them into this black hole. And I was tricked into going that way as well. And it's the way that, the toxic patriarchy teaches us to go. It teaches us to devalue ourselves, to devalue women, to devalue nature. And it's all about the narcissistic spiral of um, idealization, number one. Number two, devalue. Number three, discard. Number four, hoover. Number five, repeat. That happens within and without and in society between couples, collective energy with you and your mother, you and your father, you and your brother, you and your sister, you and your best friend, you and your girlfriend, you and your boyfriend. It's through everything. Okay. Now, the difficulty is being able to be aware of that, acknowledge that, decode that, and then heal it. And the healing process is astronomical. It's really difficult, but I've been through it and I'm going through it. I've done such deep healing that it would spin your head and it would change your entire reality, because that's what happened to me. And I'm going to talk into this more deeply to help you understand why, but you can't do it on your own. And eventually you'll realize, not straight away, but eventually you'll realize you can't do it without a woman either. So the first thing I want to say about, which is very common in the masculine, is wearing. I know this sounds really strange, but I'm going to talk about color. Okay, right. I'm sure, I'm sure that you have judgments, whether it be negative or positive, about this beautiful rainbow poncho. I had this handmade by a woman who is a recovering alcoholic. I supported her financially by asking her to make this for me, and it felt really good to do that. And the reason I'm saying that is there is so much more available that we are not made aware of through the eyes, through the feeling and the visualization of color And I find that the majority, not just men, but the majority of society wear really dark colors, especially black. Now, black is a color of death. And this is the direction that a lot of men are heading towards. And I don't mean physical death, but it is kind of like a physical death. It's the death of your dreams, right? And that leads to an unfulfilled life and suffering. And that's why a lot of that is happening now. There's a lot of suffering that is starting to show itself, a lot of exposure. And I really recommend you listen to my Easter message, right? Because I talk in there about the spirit of the rabbit and its applications of conspiracy theories and losing yourself in rabbit holes. Like if you're one of those people that listens to uh GFL channelings or what's her name, Elizabeth April or Gigi Young, they're brilliant people and they're really gifted, but they just take you down endless rabbit holes. And if you don't know what to do with that information, it's completely useless and it just distracts you from making your dreams come true. Um, and they're gifted people, but these gifts need to be used to help direct people in the correct direction towards love, not towards fear. Because if we concentrate on the rabbit holes of destruction and darkness, what are they going to do next? Who gives a shit? Get on with making your dreams to come true, right? And it has to happen now through purity. What's going to happen is all of the old ways of hustling, you know, earning money and making your dreams come true, driving a fast car, having a big house, all of that's going to crumble. It's going to be something completely new, completely different. And it's going to take time to build, and we're all going to have to build it together because the old world is going to absolutely collapse, even the economy, right? Now, the colors, it's really important to start expressing that. Like I was found growing up, I was really attracted to the color yellow. And I used to get so much abuse from men for wearing yellow. And didn't understand it for a long time. I used to get called gay all the time. Oh, and it's a really powerful color to wear because it is a masculine color. It's the solar plexus. It's gold. It's about direction. It's about fertility and sunlight. And sunlight fertilizes us. And the reason I'm mentioning this is the future human, the new Earth, the future human, the future man is going to be receiving more heart chakra energy and solar plexus energy. We're going to be feeding off our own soul light, which is located in the self in the solar plexus. And in order to do that, you have to cleanse it and purify it, which means not misleading yourself, not misleading others. And this is the journey I went on. It's really, really difficult, extremely difficult. And it's to do with working with the feminine. But what I want to talk about is with regards to men and the warriors. You know, this is all about warriorship, and it's not just the warrior archetype. It's warrior shaman, it's warrior lover, it's warrior king, and I think I said them all. There's all these different kinds of warriors, and there's a new archetype being built through the Sacred Rainbow Warrior. But that's another story. So the mental health, okay? Let's just start with that. Mental health, something really basic, okay? Mental health is not mental, it's spiritual, okay? Because there's emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual, and they're all combined. And if you ignore one of them, they'll all suffer, okay? Because the way it works is we are spiritual beings, we are souls, and we're encased in this body in a physical density. Now, just stay with me. I know this is a bit out there, but it will all make sense eventually. So the emotionality, I spoke about this in another video about healing. What is healing? And I used the different elements of water, fire, earth, and wind and spirit to describe the path of healing, the healing separation within the body. And this is why healing is not mental. It's actually less mental than any of the other elements because the reason we call it mental is because we are pushed into the mind. And the antidote is to come into the body. And that's quite straightforward, but very difficult to integrate because it requires devotion and it requires a feeling of safety. And if you believe that you feel safe and you're in your body, I would I would ask you a few questions if we were working directly, and I would help you understand that you aren't, because it's almost impossible in this time room, because when you tap into your heart and realize how sensitive you are as a man, you realize that you can feel everything that's going on in the whole collective, which means you can feel suffering and war. And it doesn't make us feel safe. And this is what happens. The more you purify, the more closer you get to your heart, like the truth of who you are. And you become more sensitive. And this is where autism comes from. When I've been on my journey and I had to purify this out of my system, I'm actually still integrating it, still healing it, the hypersensitivity of autism. And it it really, when you start to clear it, it unlocks genius. And I believe that's available in all of us. But we give it these names, these acronyms that make us feel like we're lesser than, but they're actually just names of demons. That's all they are. Depression, autism, ADHD, all this. They're all distractions. And I always say this, they're a double-edged sword. You know, when I back in 2015, I was diagnosed with CPTSD after I got my head kicked in year 2000 really badly. And my head used as a football on the edge of a curb, like something out of American History X. And it took me, well, this long to heal and recover, but it could have been a lot quicker. And that's why I'm here as a guide to help others as well. But that level of suffering put me in my mind. That level of suffering put me in my mind, and it knocked me out of my body. The amount of physical and emotional suffering I've been through in order to learn all of this is astronomical. But what that did, getting my head kicked in, is it changed who I was. It knocked a part out of me that couldn't stand the pain, and so I became overly analytical. I went out of the heart, straight into the mind, and I stayed there for over 20 years. And the problem with that is you cannot fathom or understand the reality, the truth of reality that you're in with the mind, because logic is a form of control, which means if love is everything, then logic is just a small piece of it. It's a complete and utter lie, and it's ridiculous. So mental health is not mental at all. Mindfulness should be heartfulness. Dopamine puts us into the mind, so scrolling is really, really toxic. Misleads us from our destiny and our path. It should only be used for learning, not scrolling. So I've had to integrate that. I got addicted to watching cat videos. What can I say? I love cats. Um, where was I? So mental health, yeah. So I got diagnosed with CPTSD, right? And double-edged sword, right? Because number one, I needed somebody to acknowledge that there was um, something out of alignment that I needed to look at. So in that way, it was like such a relief. It's like, oh, okay, there is something wrong. I don't believe in right or wrong. That's why I'm trying to use different words other than wrong, because it's not wrong. Wrong is when something's like desecrated. You know, is the correct word may be incorrect. It's incorrect, but I'm saying it was out of alignment with my heart. And so CPTSD um, is a list of symptoms that show up through toxic shame avoidance of a traumatic event, or in my case, multiple traumatic events. But CPTSD is just, again, it's just a thimble of the stuff that needs healing, and it doesn't address the whole cause, because it's just a control mechanism which people easily attach to. If I'd attached to the fact that I had a diagnosed with that, whatever you want to call it, that CPTSD, then if I'd attached to that permanently and said that that's mine, my, etc., etc., like when people say my pain or my depression or something like that, it's not yours. It never was yours to begin with. It was given to you, passed on to you, or hit into you, or you were told and you believed it because lack of boundaries or something. It's not yours. But the trick is to find how to send it back or how to kill it, how to get it out of your system. And I talk so much about ego death, but it's not straightforward. That's why I did a video on what the ego is. and the collective dark night of the soul, because that's what's happening. And so the trick is never to attach to something, but to take responsibility for it. And so when I realized when I realized I had that, the first thing I did is I buried my head in books, self-healing books, self-help books, to try and get to the answer. And that helped me identify a few things, but I could only ever take one thing from one book. That's how much stuff that was in there that I just didn't, excuse me, that I didn't need. Then I started seeing a psychotherapist almost immediately. I think it was within 2 weeks. I was like, great, I'm going to do something about this, taking responsibility, taking action instead of remaining stagnant and in pity, which will lead to suicide. So I started seeing a psychotherapist and I realized very quickly that I didn't know what my emotions were called. I didn't realize that I was suffering from lower emotions such as toxic shame, apathy. Apathy, I talk about that so much because it's such a rough one. It's so bad. It feels like the whole world is on your chest and you just can't move. It's horrendous. I don't wish that on anyone unless you're Bill Gates. War crimes. Anyway, so yeah, all of those lower emotions were really important for me to identify. So if you're someone that's just starting out, I recommend identifying your emotions first. It's invaluable. You can't do this work without understanding what you're dealing with. However, those are just the bread and butter, the basics, 101. And some people, you might be someone who does know how you feel. I didn't, because it had been beaten out of me, and I had disassociated from my heart so much that I could hardly feel pain. I used to do martial arts, and I used to take so much punishment and pain and violence, and my colleagues and friends around me used to think it was incredible. And it was because I disassociated from my body so much that I could take a really high amount of pain, really high. Like, I remember my friend in a front of 80 people. I laugh about it because it's hilarious. But we were doing a Krav Maga demonstration, and I had to attack him, and he kicked me in the nuts in front of everyone. And I fell to my knees, and then I just got straight back up, and everyone was like, "Whoa!" And I was like, just disassociate from the pain, just knock it out, right? And that's really egotistical. I could have attached to that, and I did for a while. It's like, oh, great, everybody, all these men think I'm great because I can't feel pain. But I needed to feel the pain, and that is the problem. Men try not to feel the pain, and then when I mean the physical pain, which we're used to, most men are used to, I'm talking about emotional pain. That's really harder, so much harder than physical pain for men. The opposite is probably true for women. They don't like physical pain. Like, I'm training my girlfriend at the moment. She's doing so amazing. I'm taking her through pain to unlock her body. But when it comes to sitting in her emotions, she is a freaking master. And it's taken me years to get to the level where I can sit in the same room with her and not freak out. Because she's so deep. She's so deep, so deep. That's why she's like really advanced. Like, working with women is difficult for men because women are so deep. Put my hand up there. Hey. Now, let me just stay on the topic of mental. So, if it's not mental, what is it, right? Okay, so I'm going to talk about the four pillars, right? The four pillars are emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual, right? I'm just keeping it simple. So if you ignore one, they'll all suffer. I said that. And the emotional is water, right? And this flows through the solar plexus. So if you ever feel like a blockage in your breathing, like if your diaphragm is like, if you're one of those people like I've been training myself for years to integrate this out of me. If you're a shallow breather, or when you're in a public situation, they call it anxiety. If you breathe, if you hold your breath quite a lot when you're doing movements or stuff like that, that's stuck emotion. And the antidote is just to breathe it out, and then to stand still and relax your whole body, especially your diaphragm and your stomach, and allow it to move through. And sometimes what happens with me in purge, I start burping. But it can come out in different ways as well, like sneezing or coughing if it's throat chakra, and farting if it's root chakra, and so on. There's loads of different ways. But I use burping because it's like I used air to get it out. There's a form of purging, but also you may feel like your blood pumping, the solar plexus pumping, and it just sort of flows out like energetically. And then we have the physical. So this is related to what I was just saying. This is why I'm saying it's not mental. There's the physical side of it because if you have trapped emotion in your body, you start to get injuries. Now, I don't know if you are aware of this, but if you have hard muscles, like some of my muscles are hard, and most of my muscles are hard, and I have knots in certain places. I've only recently just realized that our muscles are supposed to be soft. Like if you've got a cat or a dog, if you squeeze their muscles, it's soft, and yet they are prime. They're in their prime. They're athletes, and our muscles aren't supposed to be like that, and that's due to stress and anxiety. But they're emotions and they're trapped in there. That's why they get hard, they solidify, and they need to be massaged out or exercised out and stretched out. It's why yoga and stillness and breath work and Pilates and stuff like that's really, really amazing, and self massage. Um, that is so the physical side. If there is no movement, if you're a man that is, say for example, a smaller frame. I used to be like this. I didn't move at all. I went through a stage of depression after getting my head kicked in for years where I just didn't do any exercise or movement. I just drank loads of alcohol, and I became really mentally ill. That's at least that's how I labeled it. And I became chubby, fat, and lots of inflammation. My hair started falling out. I started to get really bad skin. Um, loads of things that started happening, and the physicality of overcoming your mental illness or spiritual, increasing your spiritual health, your soul health, I like to call it, because that encompasses all of it, is intense exercise to push through your limitations that are set there by your ego. And for me personally, when I started when I got my diagnosis, I got my diagnosis came for a free health check for a job that I got when I moved up to London in 2014, and I after I got the therapy after I saw the therapist, I booked a fitness instructor, and he started teaching me calisthenics. And because I'd already done martial arts, and I learned a lot of stuff through that, and I was doing Pilates and yoga and stuff like that. I was doing all these stuff to improve my physical well-being. Serotonin, I speak about this on What is Healing video. Serotonin brings us into the body, dopamine brings us into the mind. And dopamine's an addiction. It's better to be addicted to something that's good for you, like exercise, than it is for playing computer games or scrolling. Um, so so that's the emotional, the mental, and the physical. Actually, I should probably spend a bit more time on the mental. So mental is about logic, it's about knowledge, and the reason I'm not going to say toxic, but close to that. Being mental is really a form of intellectualization and storage of stuff you just don't need to know. If you need to know it, your body will remember it and it will integrate from knowledge into wisdom. And seeking knowledge and using that as power is a lie. It's a toxic lie that men are sold to look powerful, look intellectual, yeah, to feel superior. But to be truly superior, and I don't mean superior over other people, but superior superiorly confident in your own self is to come into your heart and to speak from your heart. And the journey on that road is long. That's why enjoying the journey is paramount, because there is no end destination of like, oh great, I'm in my heart now. It's the mind is a humble servant of the heart, and it's about turning the tables on that, switching that so that you're more in your heart. And when you are in your mind, at least you're speaking from your heart still. But what happens when I have done this depth of, and this can happen for you too, is when you go into this depth of healing and confront and acknowledge how amazing you are through letting go of all of that stuff which you believe you were, but you're not, you start to reclaim a level of intelligence that just isn't fathomable by logic. Um, like some of the stuff that I could tell you, like I can heal anything if you give me enough time. That's how incredible it gets. It's I'm not going to speak too much into it because it's really sacred, but if you work with me personally, you'll know that whatever issue you bring to me, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna heal it because it just takes responsibility and a level of how do I say working together. I can guide you to healing it because I've had to go through it myself. And this is where I'm going to move on now to probably one of the most important parts of this video, um, is working with your mirror opposite. She is the mirror. Now, before we begin, I want to say that in order to get to this stage, you first have to come to a stage in yourself where you are comfortable. I'm working with a lot of women who have given up being in relationship in order to come into their own energy. That's precisely the correct direction, and that's the direction I took. I'm working with one woman who has been single for 15 years, and the level of conscious awareness and spirituality she's achieved in that time is astounding, really impressive. And I personally um, spent a lot of time between relationships working on myself. And every time I fell into a relationship, I realized that I had improved slightly, but I still brought my unresolved toxic relations, toxic behavior into that relationship until I started my true healing journey in 2019. And I realized that the partner I was with at the time wasn't on a joint healing journey with me. She became stagnant. And so I asked the universe, bring me a guide after I made the sacrifice of ending that relationship because I knew that I was on a healing journey of devotion because I was so miserable. I was so, excuse me, so unhappy. And I met my partner Hazel and we decided to work ceremonially and we spoke to each other, no exaggeration, for at least 8 hours a day for 1,000 days straight. That's how devoted we were. and and we continue to devote ourselves 24/7. Like I was joking about it with her this morning that I was having dreams this morning where I'm, I'm working. It's like I'm working even when I'm sleeping. I'm like it's insane the amount of devotion on our spiritual path that we've taken to get where we are. And we did it because we knew our souls knew that this time would be coming and that we would be needed. And the the difficulty of working with a woman is that you'll never be ready, but you will be ready. And for me personally, the only way I could be ready was when I turned up at her door. She'd just gone through a narcissistic marriage and divorce. So she was in the worst possible place her entire life. And this is how it happens. You always meet them at their worst place because you have to make all the sacrifices of judgments that you have against women to overcome them. And so I turned up at her door and I said, I'm a narcissist. She was like, what? What? And she was like, well, I called for a lion-hearted man. And I was like, what? And in order to be at that level, where you are ready to work for a woman, you absolutely have to take responsibility for the fact that you are a narcissist. And you have to take responsibility for your toxic patriarchy, toxic masculinity, all of that stuff in service to the feminine. And then when you're strong enough, and trust me, it takes years, when you're strong enough, then you can deal with the toxic matriarchy because it's something else. It's something else. Um, but it's plain, really plain to see what toxic masculinity and patriarchy, it's like it's not hidden. Is it? It's in plain sight, whereas the matriarchy is really well hidden in many ways, and in other ways it's not. And so when I first arrived, I said, "Hey, look, I'm healing narcissistic behavior. Will you help me?" And she was like, "Wow, yeah, of course." And she just told me all of the truths. And she said, "What I'm about to tell you is going to destroy your life. Are you willing to do that?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. Destroy me." And I really underestimated how difficult that was and how actually she did completely destroy my life. But this is what happens. And this is what would happen if you work with me. It would destroy your old life and it'll be the best thing that ever happened to you. But it is a roller coaster. It gets when you first start out, you may already know this, but it does get worse before it gets better. And I was told that by my therapist in 2015. I was like, oh, okay, okay, and it did. And but it kind of made me well, I know it made me stronger, but it kind of wasn't that bad because it made me uh, want to devote myself further to my healing to get through it. And if you're one of those people that really knows how to fight, then you'll probably enjoy fighting through it, but there does come a stage where you have to stop the fight, but that's further along. So you have to fight for yourself. That's what my channel's about. It's about standing in love, the warrior, the rainbow warrior fighting for love. And the reason why it's important to work with a woman is because she's going to show you all of the stuff that you've ignored in yourself, and she's going to see that in you. And but you have to come to a place where judgment is not an issue, where it's very shamanic, where we sit in front of each other and we used to say this is one rule. It's personal, but it's not personal. I mean, it sounds like such a paradox, but when you're working with the ego comes up with these judgments like, oh, you're a whore, you're fat, you're a bitch, you're all this crap, right? And so if if that's coming up, you say, oh, I'm really sorry, Hazel, but my ego thinks that you're a complete twazzock. And then she'll go, okay, so what do you think's causing that? And I'm like, well, maybe it's because of the way you behaved, and that reminded me of my mother or that girl that did that to me, like that. And we go, okay, can you let that go? Yeah. Okay. Different ways of letting go. But she then doesn't take that personally because it's my ego, right? But also take it personally. Because when you take it personally, when she takes it personally, she goes, oh, that triggers something in me where I was bullied when I was a kid. And so that makes me feel, and then memory comes up. Can you let that go? Yeah, I can let that go. So there's this mirroring, this ping-ponging of this game between man and woman where you start to clear all these veils and masks between you, and you get closer and closer and closer. And it's all done through friendship. Through friendship. There's no sex involved at this stage, because if there's sex involved, it becomes really toxic really fast. So every relationship, bar the one with Hazel I had, started with dating and like a sexual intent, because that's how society kind of creates those relationships. And when I met Hazel, we were friends really quickly, and I didn't realize how. I'm just going to cut a long story short, okay? We didn't get romantically involved until 11 months later, almost a year. And because there was a lot of denial from my side, right? And that's another thing, is that during this journey, there comes multiple choice points for the man and the woman, but they're more difficult for the man because you have to say yes when you don't want to, and that resistance is your ego. Now, I've seen this happen with so many women, and it's really sad, is that they'll find a man that wants to go on a journey with them, but when it gets difficult, they leave and they find another woman. That's the number three in the narcissistic cycle of what is it? Idealization, devalue, discard. Yeah, discard. And it's really sad because men aren't guided by themselves or go through this initiation of sitting in that pain, sitting opposite someone that loves them. And what it does is it mirrors back the pain of the masculine, and he wants to up and leave. You're not good enough for me. That kind of attitude, right? And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I had to take responsibility for that. And it's really tough. It's really tough because of how we've projected and judged, and we've turned women into what they are today, which is how can I say this? Extremely devalued individuals. And I mean this at like a soul level, but it's all changing. Women are rising. I'm working with a lot of women privately, and I love it because it means I'm giving back to what I took from the feminine. I'm in service to them because I'm like an inside man. It's like you want to know how a man destroys you. Well, I'm going to I'm going to help you do the reverse. I'm going to heal you because I know how to destroy a woman because I've done it so many times. I know how to destroy a man because I destroyed myself so completely that I became my own worst enemy. So if you're a man and you're scared to work with me, know that I was afraid too. And the fear only comes from how you treat yourself, not how I will treat you, because I treat you with complete respect and honor because I look up to you. And I look up to women too. I had this dream, this is why it's important to work with women. I had this dream recently where, I work with spirit animals, and my feminine side is my shadow animal, and it terrifies the bejesus. I'm terrified of it, right? At least I was for a long time. And then I had this dream of being surrounded by 7 foot tall women, and I'm about 6 foot 1. And in the dream, I just felt so safe and so much respect and honor. And I realized the dream was telling me that I look up to women now. I look up to that part in me, because women are so powerful, they're so strong, but men judge the prowess and strength of a woman on how she reacts to a man's abuse, or her physical prowess on how she would end up against a man in a fight. I mean, can you imagine how ridiculous that is? A woman's quality, gifts, and power are based on the strength of her heart, the strength of her love. And women are masters of love. They're like a whole new other species. We're men and they're women, but we have that feminine within us too. And if we deny that, we deny our own love of the feminine, and we deny ourselves of our own forms of creation. This is how advanced it can get. And working with the feminine requires your participation in complete humbleness, responsibility, and integrity. And I can guide you through that if you don't know how to do that, because it is quite complex. And I'm really proud of myself actually for doing that with no guidance. My soul guided me. I said I need to be in this place on the winter solstice 2020. I don't know why I need to be here. And I met Hazel, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to sit in ceremony with me?" And we sat on this incredible portal of the Great Conjunction, and my whole life changed. My whole life changed. Like, I'm going to write a story about it, but if you knew what I saw that day, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. Because I came there to expose my ego. I came there and I did this huge dump of um, toxic patriarchy through self-exposure and confession. And it started showing itself by me telling Hazel to shut up. Can you imagine that, right? I'd known her like, what, 5 days or something. I was like, can you please, like, just keep it down? Why are you talking so much? And she just laughed in my face. And I got so upset. And she goes, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said, you need to sit in that and take responsibility for that because that's your ego. That's toxic patriarchy. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. She's right. Like, why else would I want her to shut up? There is no reason, no reason. And we laugh about it now, and she laughed about it back then, but I was furious. I was furious. And so I had to, because, I only just met her. And so I had to come into my body and find a way of releasing that. And so I released the anger and let it flow out my body. And there were, there was other stuff involved to help me do that, other methods. But um, that's is really challenging working with the opposite sex. I'm not going to lie. And I just want to finish the point I'm making about why it's so important is when you're mirroring man versus women, not against each other, but in together, working together, you're you're seeing hidden parts in yourself that you can't see in another man or the same sex. You can't. And what's so amazing about working with women who can be hollow bone and hold space like that is they can hold you in a depth of love that most people just can't do that. A man, it's a different, brotherly love is different. I don't know how to describe it. It's just I would say actually it's because it's such a deep feminine embodiment and acknowledgement of all your wounds that you've experienced from women, including your mother. And it's not just this lifetime, it goes back all the way through to the creation of your soul, the creation of everything. And like if you look at my video on what happened when I received the Holy Grail, that's a lifetime of work. That's emotionally how I expressed myself, how it burst out of me, one of the best feelings I've ever felt in my life. If you watch that, that's called emotional expression of joy and relief and accomplishment of healing the mother wound because it affects every man so deeply and it's so deep we're not even aware of it. It's deeply unconscious, the abandonment wound. Like my abandonment wound was quite visible, and but for most men it's not. Like my dad chased my mum out of the first floor window when I was 6 years old just abruptly, and she, long story and really traumatic. And I had to heal that, and it's taken years. So that Holy Grail video that I've done, you can see that is genuine emotion. That's genuine. That's a whole lifetime of trauma being healed, and the amount of effort it took, the amount of devotion and sacrifice it took for me to get there was just phenomenal. And it's available for everyone. It just requires responsibility and devotion. And um, responsibility doesn't mean kicking your own ass and telling yourself you're this and that. It's not. Like I said at the beginning, it's not really yours. It's not yours, but yeah, you chose it, so you have to take responsibility for it. Like I chose to get my head kicked in on that curb. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. My soul took me on that journey and I chose that. And I chose to be a toxic man. I chose to waste the majority of my life drinking alcohol and poor food. And I remember this voice in the back of my head saying, "You're going to use this one day to help other people." And I was like, I could feel it deep in my soul. And I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, I'll knock another one back then." And I gave up alcohol, and it's amazing, getting to that stage, giving up addictions. All addictions are a form of slavery. And when I get to the antidote of that, I'm still getting rid of a few addictions. But when I get to the antidote of that, I'm going to do a video on it. I'm just finishing off one addiction of watching cat videos. Right, logic. Let's talk about logic and control. If you can rid yourself of control, then you are gonna quantum leap. Quantum leap. Oh boy. So, logic, as I described earlier, is trying to understand feminine through logic and control. You can't control that, right? So, if you want to understand feminine, you have to open your heart, which is liberation. So, so the feminine, we are as well, but I'm just using this as an example. The feminine is multidimensional. She's a piece of art. And you can't understand multidimensionality through logic. You can only understand it through the heart. And when I say through the heart, I can understand how this sounds because I went through this too. I mean through feeling love. Because when you feel through love, you feel the elements of creation and consciousness. So everything flows through you like information, and what you need to know lands immediately, and you can integrate it, and it becomes wisdom rather than knowledge. If you trying to chase the meaning of something or the knowledge of something, being more mental and cognitive, then it's not going to land into your heart. It needs to land in your heart in order for you to accept it. Because some of the things that you learn about who you are, what you are, where we are, how we are so big that they would, if you received it through the mind, like it has happened to me in the past, I had a cognitive dissonance and I nearly lost my mind. It happened one time where I came face to face with an extraterrestrial entity, um, and I thought I was going to die because I thought I was going to lose my mind, and I was on my own. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die in my bed, and my mum's going to find me, and I'm going to be dead. I didn't want to go out this way, and it was all an illusion, but it felt so real, and I had to go through all that. It's not what do you call it? Exorcisms. I had to learn them myself, how to exorcise demons out of myself. And that was intense. And do you know what happened? I became addicted to it. I got misled into that. And that's why I've done a video on the antidote to devil worship, because most people don't realize that they are devil worshippers because it sounds ridiculous, but we all have been taught to worship lies. People who listen to the news, that's devil worship. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is. It really is. And I only know that because I did so many exorcisms. I did hundreds. And I found it fun because I came from that dark, distorted patriarchy where, I grew up watching violent movies and horror movies. And so I kind of fell in love with that. And it wasn't until until I got a wake up call about how it was actually, you know, I was taking my partner Hazel with me. I was actually taking her into such a dangerous position that she could have lost her mind. She could have ended up in a mental institution, which is what happens to women when they are gaslit. And because I was still cleaning out my narcissistic behavior, I was misleading her and gaslighting her through because I was misleading myself. She would say, "We don't need to go this way. We need to go more into the light. We need to go into joy." And I was like, "Okay, well, just one more, just one more, just one more. I have to do it this way." And this is what's going on collectively in the patriarchy. I was doing that spiritually, and I can see how they're in stuff like it's in sugar, sugar as an entity of slavery in it, processed sugar, I mean, not natural stuff. And they put all that stuff in our food. And so, computer games, stuff like that, they're all forms of addiction through these demonic entities that are created through our own uh, choices, pretty much, right? And there's a long story behind that. But as I said in the Easter video, if I continue talking about that, it's a rabbit hole and it takes you into the distraction of overthinking about things which aren't necessary for you to make your dreams come true or heal, which is exactly why I'm telling you this, because it's a great example of how I fell into that trap. It's like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I want to know more about this. Tell me more, tell me more. I'm going to read up on it. No, no, don't. Don't forget about it. I'm just trying to tell you how getting to this level there are pitfalls for men. Get attracted to destruction, get attracted to misleading, being misled by yourself and through others. And it hasn't been easy for me, and I couldn't have done it on my own. This is why I say doing it with the feminine in divine union is really profound, but you can't do it until you're ready. So spend some time on your own, get to know yourself, come into courtesy, etiquette, become well-mannered, become charming to yourself, and don't, you know, reserve yourself from sexual relationships with women. Become clean in your integrity, purify who you are, and then when you are ready, that woman, that feminine, your opposite, that twin flame, whatever you want to call it, will come into your life when the time is right, but it may not look like how you believe it to look like. It may not be this picture perfect woman that you had imagined. It will be a feeling. It will be like a friendship, like a sister, or or for a woman like a brother. And it's because it needs time to grow because it's so big when that happens. It's so big, it needs time to grow. Um, Back to what I was saying about logic. So knowledge, reading all the books, uh, watching all the documentaries, listening to all the podcasts. I did all that. It's only going to get you so far. It's like 1%, if that, of the journey of healing. The real journey starts when you start looking inside and stop seeking knowledge because you already know it all. Like I had this conversation with God once, and I asked him a question, and he goes, "You already know." And I was like, "Oh, just tell me." I didn't say that out loud, but I was like, "Oh, just tell me." And I was like, he's like, "Just feel it inside." Because I asked him, "What is my purpose?" And then, being an impatient man is what kind of creates that seeking for knowledge. It's like, I want that answer now. I want to know. I want to know. It's like this energy of entitlement. And I don't know if it was the next day, but it was at least a few days later or sooner after I asked her that question that I received my purpose, my divine purpose through animal wisdom. And I was like, whoa. And I had this feeling of like, oh yeah, I did know that. And hello, there's a hawk above the window. So sorry, a bit distracted by that beautiful bird. The knowledge, yes, being it disconnects you from your heart. And as I said, the mind is meant to serve the heart, not dominate it. So when after you've filled your brain, your mind with all this knowledge, it really becomes um, experience. I'm not going to say it becomes useless. It doesn't. You'll definitely use it in the future, but you don't need it because you already know everything. We're not here to learn. We're here to recreate ourselves. And you realize that I first realized that when I had this really profound experience where uh, these women that I were working with, these shamanic women, were saying, "Oh yeah, I connect with the universe and stuff." And I was like, "Okay, you just talking metaphorically, aren't you?" And they would just laugh at me, like not like laugh at me, but like, like you just don't get it. And I used to jest with a guy at the time, like, "Oh God, why are they always talking about all this airy fairy stuff?" And then I sat with Hazel one day and she goes, "You really want to know? I can't tell you in words. You're going to have to feel it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Put your heart on my heart." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what do you mean?" She's like, "Don't worry. I'm not going to have sex with you or anything." I was like, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Just put your heart on mine." And so she lay on the floor, fully clothed, and I lay on top of her, and I pulled my shirt down. She pulled hers, and our hearts connected. And what I felt and saw changed my whole life forever. And then I realized how powerful the feminine are, and how, as a man, you just can't understand it until you feel it. You can't. It's impossible. I could tell you what I saw right now, and you could figure it out logically, but you wouldn't be able to experience it and feel it. So therefore, you wouldn't be able to experience the truth of who you are, what we are, why we're here, and where and our purpose. It's incredible. When I came out of it, my jaw dropped like this, like, for like at least 5 minutes. No exaggeration. I hate exaggeration because it's just a form of lies, right? So I was like this, and Hazel was like, "What? What did you see?" And I was just like, and then I just started hysterically laughing. She goes, "What are you laughing at?" And the first thing I said was, "I've got a job." I found it hilarious that I had a job in the Matrix. I was working in finance for 18 years. It took so much out of me, feeding a lie, feeding the lie of fake money and all that nonsense. And so I was laughing for about 10 minutes because I just it's so insignificant to the truth of who we are. It's just magical. And as a man, I highly recommend it. And that was right early on in my journey. And you can only get that through a woman. You cannot get it through the mind. If you were really incredibly good at meditation, and I mean, I don't even know if it's possible. I would have to ask another man if he's ever achieved um, that level of universal feeling, let's say, through the heart. But I did it through the feminine because I just wasn't aware of it. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. So that's another reason to work with the feminine. It will take you cosmic as well as deep into the earth. It's really good fun. So, um, I just did a video on sharing the voice and emotions. The my greatest form of advice for you as a man, and this applies to women as well, is to really feel and sit in your emotions and cry often. Cry often. And there'll come a crossover stage where you've grieved so much, like I've grieved so much, that you have to leave grief behind. The level of loss that I've been through is just can't be measured. And what you don't realize is that you will have a similar level of grief because it's a collective grief and it's not just from this lifetime. It's not like I've been grieving the genocide of my tribe from thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it happened repeatedly. And that level of loss cracks open the heart on unheard of levels that have never been done before. And it creates so much light that it connects us. I'm talking about my what I did, connected me to the light grid in the sky and the earth grid hidden in the earth. And that level of love and coding goes out into the um, light grids for humanity and the collective. And that me unlocking that goes out and helps people open to the possibility of a new pathway for themselves. So every time I'm healing, I'm in service to humanity. So that's really profound. And the same is happening for you. Every time you make a choice for love, it's like a butterfly effect. But the bigger the choice, as in the bigger the sacrifice, the more profound the effect. I'm trying to think of some incredible examples I can give you, but they're quite sacred, and I'm probably going to write about them. But I remember one of the times was we were trying to do some collective work to help the collective because of all the stuff that's going on. And we it got to the stage where it was getting too dangerous for us because we were misleading ourselves. We forgot that the best way to serve the collective is to serve ourselves, to work on ourselves so that we can then be in service like I am now. But one of those times was when it was Black Friday. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. And the level of darkness that I experienced on Black Friday was almost killed me. I felt suicidal for weeks afterwards because I had gone into that energy expecting to be able to, uh, how do I say, conduct it and direct it out of the collective energy without being in my heart. And that was the problem. I wasn't strong enough in my heart. And the level of strength that it needs in order to be able to lift that level of density is quite enormous because it's really satanic and dogmatic and all that stuff. But I managed to do it anyway through integration because I chose to do it in that distorted way. It turned into light through my body, but I shouldn't have had to have gone through that. It was really horrible. But these are this is why we get attacked on these holy holidays, like what they did with send the spaceship up with the 6 women. Ugh. And Katy Perry, they that was a distortion of if the it was an attack where they used the rocket as a form of penetration of penis and the women as seeds. They were trying to stop and it's a representation of going beyond. It's trying to stop the new feminine from rising. But it's not going to happen. They don't understand how futile their attempts at stopping us from rising are, because we're already strong enough, and I'm here being strong enough, and I'm constantly growing every day to hope, to just keep hoping and keep going forward for this new cracking open. If you listen to my Easter video, you'll understand what I mean by that. We're growing, and we're outgrowing this reality, this illusion, this lie. And I'm here for my brothers and sisters. And I'm really enjoying the fact that more of you are commenting on my videos and interacting with me. And I'm working with more of you privately. And I'm seeing that we all have the same journey but different stories. That's the thing that's shown itself to myself and Hazel. And it's really beautiful to be in this level of service. It's an honor to be able to help people through difficult times. Um, so if this has stirred something in you, don't be afraid to reach out. Um, my website, I'm very proud of that. I really put a lot of effort into that, and I do. There's a button somewhere on there for a free discovery call if you're not sure. We can book a 20-minute call if you want to work with me. But any questions, or I'd love some suggestions on videos, even they're just basic questions. I know I always go deep and divine, but that's just me speaking my truth. But I'll be able to address anything. If you want to know how to cure anything, deal with anything, I'll decode it and I'll do a video on it. So thank you for listening. Peace. Bye bye.